I'll tell you what, there's just so much going on right now. I I picked the talk title like I always do at the beginning of the week. The title was Don't Be a Prisoner of Your Thoughts. And then the week sort of exploded from there. So where to begin? Originally, I was going to begin with the idea that have you ever had a song stuck in your head and you can't get that song out of your head? No matter how you try, it keeps popping back up and you keep finding yourself singing it. Well, I want you to know that you have thoughts that have been going around in your head since you were little that are still ruling you when you don't take notice, when you don't take time to notice. This week, seeing all these folks, seeing, that picture of that police officer with his hands in his pockets, leaning on that black man's neck, brought up such rage, upset in me. I was so wanting to strike out at somebody, at something, to say, this person cannot be of the same humanity as me. This person is not like me at all. This person is somehow, a deviant and not of God. And then I thought, of course, I know better than that that's not true. That it's all God. That that person, is a prisoner of some thought that led him to behave that way. And that's what's really going on here. People aren't racist out of a vacuum. People are racist because they have thoughts of fear that it's the only way they can be to have what it is they want. People don't steal out of a vacuum. People steal because they feel it's the only way they can get what they want. People don't murder out of a vacuum. People don't loot and riot out of a vacuum. They do it because they think it's the only way to get what they want. There's this great scene in the movie Gandhi that actually happened, which is when Gandhi had thousands of protesters march up to police officers at the front of a manufacturing plant where they are struck down with sticks. And as each group walked up and gets struck down, they're carried away, and then the next one walks forward and is struck down and then is carried away, and then the next group walks up and is struck down. And this went on all day. And not one of the protesters, not one, that day, raised their hand to defend themselves. Now, at the time, the reporters and anybody else watching must have thought that was crazy. Must have thought this is insane. This can't get us the results we want. And yet it did. It marched Great Britain, right out of India. Martin Luther King was incredibly clear about this. Incredibly clear that nonviolence is what makes real change happen. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. It's not like there's anybody on this call. Maybe there's some folks on Facebook, but there's nobody I know on this call who's thinking of being violent in these times. But I got to tell you, it comes up in me. I feel violent. I feel like I want to strike out. And it is only because of this teaching and the way it has supported me in training my mind to stay focused on truth. Trish talked about what action to take to a black man who didn't know. But we know when the moment shows up. I posted something on Facebook the other day of a of a protest in which the leader of Black Lives Matter announced to all the white people, here's how you can support us. Create a line between us and the police. And it was the women who did it. That line in that picture is all white women who stepped up arm in arm between the protesters and the police and said, you will not pass us. That was beautiful. I was so moved by that. And then on the other side of the coin, I saw a video of a Black woman filming white people destroying a Starbucks. And then asking them, why are you doing this? You're not doing this for me. I don't want the destruction. Why are you doing this? It turns out that over 80% of all the destruction happening in these riots is by white people. And that's not what the Black people want. That is not being a good ally. That is not standing tall in our teaching. And again, I know I'm preaching to the choir here. My original idea about this talk was being, breaking free of the prison of our thoughts. And I got to tell you that the transformation of this has got to occur outside of what we think is possible, outside of how we normally think about things. I don't know about you, but I spend an awful lot of time having thoughts and then saying to myself, okay, now what's next? I'm not somebody who gets discouraged when I don't have a new thought. One of the greatest parts of this teaching is to know that that new thought is coming. That's really the key here, is to know that your new thought is coming, whether you have it now or not. When Tricia was sitting with her friend and they didn't know, that doesn't mean they won't know tomorrow. That doesn't mean that the knowing of what to do next won't show up in ways that usually shows up that we can't even imagine. I mean, that's the beauty of when we break free of the prison of what we think to be so. Because what we think to be so is a prison. Let me be very clear and repeat that. What we think to be so is a prison. And it will force us to react in a way that isn't to our highest and best. I know that there's a lot of folks, even on my Facebook page, who complain about how prayer is not enough. But it's the best starting point we've got. There is no better one in the world than starting with prayer. Because when we can get to our centered self, no matter what the circumstance, whether it be white cops killing Black people, whether it be riots, whether it be a pandemic, whatever it is, the answer lies outside of what we can see presently. Whenever we feel overwhelmed, whenever we feel like what's going on in our lives is too much, the answer lies outside of what we can see presently. I will repeat again what I have repeated the past 2 weeks. Dr. Holmes said that transformation does not rectify, it transmutes. We cannot fix this. We cannot fix white supremacy, racism, violence, the pandemic. They cannot be fixed. They can be transformed. And that's our job for today, is to see how to transform this amazing opportunity that's going on right now. This is, I'm a white guy. I'm an old heterosexual white guy who's pretty much had who's had privilege and my way of having my life my whole life. So it may sound like it's easy for me to say these things. I'm not the guy going through that stuff. And that's true. I'm not the guy going through that stuff. I'm now sitting safely in my home. I get a weekly paycheck. I eat. My rent's paid. Things are going really, really well for me and my wife and my family. So it may sound like I don't really have any say here. And part of me feels that way, honestly. But then the larger part of me knows that the more of us, white, black, Hispanic, brown, whatever, green, blue, whatever color you are, whatever race you are, whatever sexual preference you are, the more of us who speak out for transformation, the more of us are adding to everyone, finding new ways of being in the world, finding new ways of transforming what is going on here, because the ways we've been doing aren't working. And this can't be fixed. But it can be transformed. How do I know that? How do I know that this can be transformed? Because anything can. That's what we've been taught. That's what we've been, grown through in our spiritual practice. It's not empty. Our spiritual practice is not just some empty thing we do. Al Cid does his prayer and it has impact, not just here in the room, but on the world. It must. That's what we believe, that every prayer has impact. There was a group of, I think, 250 people who surrounded a lake in Japan. And it was a polluted lake. And all they did was pray on it, send it love and pray on it. And within a few hours, that lake was retested and was no longer polluted. That's real physical change in the real world. Prayer is not empty. And prayer leads to action. All the best actions I've ever taken have started with prayer. Every single time I've done something that's had the most impact in the world started with prayer. It's easy to become a prisoner of what we think we see, what we think we feel, what we think we know. But I promise you, there's always more going on if we can remind ourselves to ask. We are the key to our own prison. We're it. We can't be the key to anybody else's prison. I can't be the key to that police officer who leaned on that guy's neck. He's going to have to find that for himself. But I look at the Miami Police Department that during the protest went down on one knee with the protesters, and I say change is in the air. I see that Black Lives Matter leader saying, please go arm in arm and protect us from the police, and a bunch of white women do that peacefully, and I say change is in the air. It's easy to get caught up in the spirit of the moment of violence, of heartache. And as Trish was saying, we don't want to stuff down those feelings. We want to have them. We want to experience them in the world because it's painful what's going on right now. It's really, really painful. But that pain does not change the truth. And the truth is, we are bigger than what we see. We are bigger than what we know. A new day is coming. We are the light bearers of that new day if we choose to be. Each of us who stands for the truth every time we do. A lady wrote me on my Facebook page, messaged me privately, saying, what good does these general prayers doing that you're making? They have no impact at all. And they're just so vague. And I wrote her back and I said, that's not true for me. What's true for me is that I hold these truths to be self-evident. That there is only one. And through that one mind, we have impact. And through knowing that, my actions become clear as to what it is that's mine to do next. So that I don't react from a place of rectifying, but that I come from a place of transformation. We are at the verge of an incredible transformation of our world on so many different levels. And it is in these times, the times that get darkest, that our true character and nature shows itself. The darker it gets, the stronger we need to be in what we know to be true. That light is coming. A new day is coming. Transformation is coming. We get to create it. We get to create it by knowing the truth. We get to create it by knowing our own beingness and remembering and not getting caught in the prison of what we think was so. You are your key. Unlock your door and let yourself fly. And the new thoughts you will have, the new ways of being that will come to you, in the moment you know that this is the action for you to take, you will be ready, you will take it, and it will be brilliant. I love you. Thank you.
God is the source of all supply. Money is God in action. What I give, I receive multiplied abundantly. All that God is, I am, and so it is.